Okay, so let's dive into December. Sagittarius, we call this month Kislev on the lunar calendar. So for those of you who are new to me, so it's really interesting. The very first book ever written about astrology, it was carbon dated and it's in Hebrew and it's called the Sefer Yetzirah. And it's the oldest carbon dated book that writes down what the what the months are and what the energetic codes are to every month. And it was found in the town where Abraham lived in Beersheba in the south of Israel. And so this is where we start to understand for thousands of years the order of the stars and the energy to time. Time has an energy, doesn't it? There's a different feeling in spring. There's a different feeling in summer. There's a different feeling in winter, right? And so we want to understand what is that about and how can we're all sharing this collective time, right? Whether we're in Costa Rica or we're in London right now or we're in South Florida, we're sharing this place in time. So what is it about this time that we can all tap into? How do we leverage what's happening right now on a energetic level so that we can ascend, right? The seasons allow us to continue to move up that Jacob's ladder of that ascension into our true design, right? And if we're awake and if we're aware of it, it can actually be such a gift. So let's talk about it. So I'm going to start with a post that I wrote. Oh my gosh, is Monday yesterday? I'm like, what day is it? What day? Today's the 2nd, right? So December 1st, yesterday, I wrote this. It says, "Hello, December. Sagittarius walks in like, babe, dream bigger. Stop pretending you're meant to be reasonable. From a Kabbalah standpoint, it's literally the month of miracles, the month where the light shows off, the month where the universe gets generous because your energy matches what you've been asking for. This is the season where desire becomes a holy compass and receiving becomes your spiritual practice. So let's let December pull us higher. Let it rewrite your timeline. Let it show you how good it gets when you stop shrinking and start allowing. Miracles are the vibe, abundance is the baseline, and so it is." So let's dive in to learning a little bit about what this is all about. First of all, we have these conversations and we throw these words around like miracles, right? Type of one if you believe in the concept of miracles, first of all. And, the English language is very burdened. And so some people will say, oh, I don't believe in miracles because I think miracles are only something that, they've seen on TV or they're not necessarily sure what that even means. But miracles aren't magic. They're actually the natural consequence of living from your soul instead of your fear. When you are living from the consciousness of your soul, you just walk right into the miracle every second. I shared a story last week that I was rushing for a train and I was 3 minutes late for the train. And I turned to my friend and said, oh, it's divine timing. So we're right on time. And she's like, how are you not upset? I'm like, because we're 3 minutes late and we're right on time. We got on a different train. That train was delayed. We got off that second train, took an Uber to San Diego, 3 hours. She's like, you're not upset about the fact that you're taking a 3 hour Uber? And I was like, no, I know it's divine timing. And an hour later, I got an email from Amtrak telling me, thinking I was on that first train that I missed by 3 minutes, telling me that that first train had been derailed and stalled, which is why the second train didn't leave the station. I would have never gotten to my destination. I would have been on a track all day, stuck, derailed because of mudslides. But I was right on time, right? So how many times in your life, like if we all, how much fun would it be to sit around a campfire and each of us tell stories like that, right? But how many times in your life have you been turning too quickly, just to make the light? And you're like, that could have been a totally different situation, but something protected me somewhere and I'm here now, right? How many moments in your life did you just happen to go to an event you weren't supposed to go to and then you meet this person and now she's your best friend for 32 years, right? Like it's constant actually, right? It is the natural order of things. So let's dive in and talk about why this month. Now, in the Western Hemisphere, by the way, this content relates to all of us in this moment, no matter where we are on the map. But in the Western Hemisphere, it's interesting, right? Because the days are the shortest, and yet we talk about this as the season of light. So what does that mean? Well, let me say it to you this way. If I were to tell you to light a candle in the noonday sun, can you see it? No. But if I were to tell you to light a candle in a dark room, how beautiful is that? How cozy is it when you turn off all the lights and you put on the Christmas tree and you just sit there and look at the light in that dark room? And now you can really feel the light, right? How often have you been somewhere and you realize you were sent there because you were meant to be the light in that space, right? I remember going into my dad's hospice room a year ago, and he had been unconscious for a few days, and I start singing to him every song that he played when I was a little girl. And I get to like the greatest hits of Barry Manilow, and he opens his eyes, and he was awake for a day and a half, fully. The nurse said, I've never seen someone stay awake all those hours after not having food or drink for days. She's like, it was incredible. And I can't tell you what it felt like that I knew I could bring some light in that space. What an honor it is to be the light sometimes in a space that could use some light. And then I got back such a gift because he opened his eyes. And by the way, my father's deaf. My dad's actually deaf. So when I was singing those songs, it's not even that he heard my voice. He heard me. He felt it. She said that his blood pressure started to go up as soon as I walked in the room. And I was sitting next to him and holding his hand and I was singing to him. And, your plants change from just talking to them, right? They don't have ears. So we vibrate, we connect. We are not logical, we're biological, right? And so by just sitting there with this love, right, he woke up. Love is that powerful, can wake you up. That's a miracle. A miracle, really, is that love is that powerful. So, what does it mean that we call this season the season of light, and these are the shortest days in the Western Hemisphere, right? And in Jerusalem, right, in Bethlehem, in these days, right, where it was the darkest, shortest days, we call this season the season of light. But why? Because maybe you were sent here to be the light. Because maybe the day actually begins in the night, and that's just the beginning of the story. Maybe the morning, maybe, day darkness turns into light. And you've heard me tell this story that there's a prayer in the Jewish prayer book, we call it a Siddur, and every single morning we pray to be like a rooster. And the question is, why? And some of you heard me tell this story, and I wrote it it's at the end of my book. I ended my book with this because it's so powerful. There's an amazing woman. She passed away a few years ago. Her name was Esther Youngright. She was a Holocaust survivor. And she told the story that when she was in the concentration camp at 5 years old, she remembered her father saying, Esther, be like a rooster. And she kept thinking, what does that silly prayer mean? I just don't know what that means. And years later, many, many years later, after the camps had been liberated, she had originally lived in Hungary. She had moved to the United States. She was living in the States, and George W. Bush had invited her to be a guest with him to go to a Holocaust museum opening in Jerusalem. And she was asked to fly with him on Air Force One. And she flew with him. They went to this opening of this Holocaust museum. And as they were flying home, she fell asleep on the plane. And he tapped her on the shoulder and he said, look out the window. And she said, what is it? And he said, I just wanted you to see where you are. And she said, I don't know where I am. He said, well, you're in Air Force One flying over Germany back. And I just wanted you to see that. And she said, Cathy, that's what the rooster knows. I figured out the prayer. Because the rooster is the first one on the farm just when the night can't get any darker. right? The night starts to get dark 6, 7, 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's as dark as it's going to be. And then the day breaks. And the first one who says, wake up, the light is here, is the rooster. As soon as it's the darkest, the rooster says, the light is going to break, right? Because that's really the assignment, is to be a rooster wherever you are, right? And so we are in this season where, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we create miracles in our life. So in this time, okay, the energy of Sagittarius, and we're going to talk more about why the bow and arrow, you're going to love this. We'll do a little exercise. The idea here is that just a spark is all you actually need. So what does it mean that a spark can rearrange everything? Just a tiny dot of light. That's how powerful it is in this time. Just this much belief, just this much optimism, just this much intention, just this much action. That's the month that we're in. In this month, it goes a long way. The energy of this month is, even in the shortest days, even in the darkest time, the quality, the potency of your capacity for just a little light goes a long way. Did that land? Do you really hear what I'm saying? Right? So often we think we need to have full clarity, full certainty, no. This much faith in this season, it moves the needle. This much belief, it moves the needle. So what's the story? The story is that long before Jesus is born, not too long before, but before, there's a story, right? The Hanukkah story. It's a true story. What happens? What happens is that the Hellenists don't want Jews to be Jews, right? They don't want them to believe in this one God, this monotheism. They want to kind of shift all of that and have them kind of, let go of all of that. And so there's a big battle in Jerusalem. And what happens is of course, the Jewish army is outnumbered, but somehow they win this war. But the celebration is not about winning this war. It's about the light. Now, what happens? Some of you know the story. What happens is, and this is a true story, that King David's temple, right, this big temple in Jerusalem, was destroyed in this battle. And the very first thing this army does, this Jewish army, when they win this war, which was unbelievable, right? And had they not won this war, Jesus would not have been born in Bethlehem after that. But the very first thing that they do, right after this war, is they walk into that temple because they want to light the menorah. Because in the holy temple, the light is always on to signify the eternal light of the divine. It's always on. It's always lit. Okay? They go in. Of course, there's no light on. Everything's been ransacked. Everything has been destroyed. And before they go home, and before they go to eat, and before they go to find their family, and before they go to shower off, whatever, the first thing they do, they decide that they're going to sit there and look through all the soot for the oil to turn that light back on. That is priority number one, to find enough oil to light that lamp. And they look and they look and they look, and they only find one tiny little jar of oil left. And they turn on that light. And it's so bright in such a dark moment, right? And by the way, that night, that first night of Hanukkah, is the birthday of Jesus. Just so you know, on the calendar, okay? This is the portal. This is why it's so powerful. They light that light. And by lighting that light, they only had enough for that one night. And it's supposed to, the menorah has many different branches on it. That oil lasts them 8 nights. Now, why is that so significant? Well, first of all, that defies logic, defies nature. It's not supposed to last. It did. It just kept burning. But 8 is the number, it's the numerology of infinity, right? The world was created in 7 days. We could talk another time about this book from MIT called Genesis and the Big Bang, which actually talks about how those were not 24-hour days, because a 24-hour day is what? When the earth and the sun do their little dance together. This was like it goes into detail. It's an amazing book. It's called Genesis and the Big Bang. It talks about how until the very last day, the last day was 24 hours. The first days are different mathematical equations because we didn't even have a 24-hour day. Okay. Beyond the solar system, there are no days, 24-hour days. Anyways, but just for the purpose of this conversation, the number seven is the 7 days of the week, and 8 is infinity because it's beyond nature. It's beyond this world, right? It's a portal. So that's why we see a lot of eights where there is something that transcends. So it was 8 nights, okay? Now, the miracle, you could say, is that they won the war. But there's a deeper teaching. The deeper teaching is that they looked for the light at all, right? That their spirits were still in a place where they were like, the whole reason for that battle was to bring the light. That's the reason. That's the purpose. That's the miracle, right? Which is why we don't celebrate Hanukkah as a 7-day festival. Because think of it, the first day wasn't a miracle. They had enough for one day. So why don't we celebrate it as a 7-day miracle? First day wasn't. No, the miracle was that they looked for the light at all. That's a bigger miracle. The miracle was the faith to go and look for the light, to bring light into the world, to remember the assignment, to remember the purpose. That is a miracle in and of itself. That's why it's 8 nights. Type of 1, if you're new to that story, I'm just curious, have you ever heard that before? Okay, so one little light can shift the whole room. Now, what do we also know about light? How many candles can you light from one candle? 10, 20, 100? Infinite. One little wick, one spark can light an unlimited amount of other lights. That is who you are in this world. You're out here every single day. Your mind makes you think you're looking outside of yourself for validation, for approval, for this, for that. The abundance is that when you are tapped in and turned on, how many people can you love? How many people can you inspire? How much magic can you ignite in the room? Infinite. Okay. So when it comes to Kislev, when it comes to Sagittarius, this is a time where the hidden light also becomes revealed, right? That first valve of oil was hidden, but it's here. So the miracle is to look. And when you look it, you'll find it. True or not true? So my grandmother used to say, it's easy to find the bad. You got to look for the good. And when you look, it'll always be right there. So the miracle is this much of you choosing to see it, you'll be the one who finds it. That's what's happening right now. And you can prove me right every single day, right? You can play a game with the universe and be like, let's go, you're up. I'm looking for it. There it will be. Sometimes in the most unlikely places, right? My friend Mitch Albom wrote a book called Tuesdays with Maury. I'm about to have him on the podcast for a third time. I can't wait because he has a new book called Twice and it looks so good. I cannot wait to read it. He went to visit his teacher from Brandeis, Maury. He's visiting him. He's blown away by this man and his wisdom. This was his favorite professor. He's dying of Lou Gehrig's disease. And at the end of one of their times together, he went every Tuesday. Maury says, you know what's going to kill me? Not dying because I know I'm dying, but what's going to really kill me is after I die and my family is left with all these medical bills. And so Mitch, without telling Maury, decides to see if he could take the notes from all these days and get a book deal to pay for all of these medical bills. He's never written a book like that in his life. He was a sportscaster. He did write for a living. He was a journalist, but he wrote about sports. So he decides and he goes from publisher to publisher. They all say no until one little publisher says, you know what? We'll try it. He says, great, I want all the money to go to this family. I don't want a cent from it. He's thinking maybe it'll make like $10,000, $2,000, whatever it is, it'll go to them. It becomes a bestseller. It stays on the bestseller list for decades. The light is there, sometimes in the most unlikely places. And what's bigger than that is that Mitch told me that book changed his whole life because that one good deed led him to become who he really was supposed to be. And he stopped writing about sports and he started writing different things. And then he opened an orphanage in Haiti. And then he adopted a girl, even though she had a terminal illness. And even though she knew she would pass, it still was the biggest blessing in his life. And then he changed the state of homelessness in Detroit because of all the ways that he started to look at what else could he do? What else could he do? Imagine, while the mind is such a liar, right? Just takes you off course all the time, right? While that's just ranting, telling you all these things that you're not doing to measure up or what you didn't post on Instagram or why you're lacking. Meanwhile, you've got a heart that is so ready to usher in so much light. And on the other side of that, the doors you'll open, the quantum portals you open, it's hard to even conceive of, okay? So we're going to go through a few things here. So the first thing I wanted you to know is the spark in the darkness. The second thing is the idea of faith over logic, certainty beyond logic, okay? So Sagittarius is actually ruled by Jupiter, okay? Which means this is where expansion and possibility are most present. This month is ruled by divine orchestration, which you summon into your life from trust. When you're in a state of trust, you're just right on your GPS. That's your only job, right? God has to do everything else. That's your only job, just to be in trust. So this is the month where your faith, your trust, right, produces faster results than any strategy. When you leap from trust, this is the month where the net totally appears. So think about that. Try that one on. The third thing, and I'm going to send you these notes, is that we're meant to aim higher than we think we're allowed to. That's what this month is about. We're meant to aim higher than we think we're allowed to. Sagittarius energy, now we're going to talk about why it's a bow and arrow. I'm a Gemini, which are those twins. We'll talk about that a different day. So Sagittarius, the energy is of the archer, okay? So what's that about? Because it wants you to lift your gaze. Wants you to lift your gaze while you're aiming, right? And shoot beyond your current identity. Whatever version of you you've been, you know you're ready to shed that skin. This little plant has outgrown its pot. You're ready to expand in every way. You're ready to up level in your honesty, your authenticity, the way you show up, the way that you make an impact, your relationships. Are you not? Type a 1 if you're ready for that. Okay, so the reason we have this bow and arrow is because it's about widening your aim, shooting beyond your current identity. How good does that feel to even think that thought? So then the arrow lands where your energy, where your intention is set, okay? But what we want to remember is so that that new intention comes before the action and the energy comes before the effort. So when you shoot a bow and arrow, before the action, what happens is the aiming. What happens is the intention. How often are we in action, 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 but we're not stepping back fully, really intending where we want to shoot, where we want to aim from intention, the power of that intention. That's what this is about. Miracles are the default. Miracles are the default, right? We talked about how Hanukkah, the oil lasted longer than what was possible. What does it even mean, what's possible, right? God is infinite. It's all possible, right? So the miracles aren't random. They're the natural consequence. When you stop contracting and you let light in, boom, there's a miracle. How often have you changed the way you show up in a relationship and the relationship changes? When you don't contract, but you actually expand, everything has no choice but to rearrange around you. Sagittarius is the energy that wants movement and freedom and truth. So if something feels heavy, it's a no, okay? It's a no. The trees, right? The leaves die off on this month. We shed what's not a yes. We go into 2026 with what is intentionally the truth, and it will start to bear fruit in the spring. But we let what needs to die, die. We say no, we're not carrying with us into this next year. So if it feels expansive, it's a yes. The miracles happen when you stop pretending to be someone that you're not. When you show up in truth, boom. It was always there in escrow, but now you're actually there to receive it. So there's a tension when you're releasing a bow and arrow. Not that I've done this, but I can imagine. I watched, what's the movie? Brave? What's her name? That's one of the cartoons I only saw once. Everything else, I have 3 daughters. I've seen them all like 95 million times. Merida. Is it Merida? Yeah. Actually, people tell me that Maddie, my youngest, looks like Merida because she has like curly hair. So the current tension is not the problem in your life. It's your resistance. It's not the tension, it's the resistance. Because the truth of the matter is, when you pull back, what do you have to do? You have to let go. So I would like to pick up where we left off yesterday and go a little bit further and talk a little bit about manifestation and manifesting the miracle and manifesting the most abundant possibility. And what I want you to realize and sort of always have as a reference point is, when we say that the creator of the universe is infinite, it actually means infinite, which means that all possibilities exist, everyone. And as many of you, we've talked about it before many times. Some of you read it in my book, but some of you have heard me say it. And if you haven't, it's just good to always remember. The world works like the radio metaphor, where we are selecting what station we're tuned to, and that is the music that's playing based upon what you are tuned into. So when you're tuned into possibility, you're like, oh my gosh, my whole day, all these surprise and delights, all these possibilities. When you're tuned into lack, you just keep getting back that radio station. Okay. So if you love the world loves you back. If you want to find evidence that the world is made of good people, you will find them every day. If you want to find evidence that the world is made of people who are cynical, you'll find them every day. And whatever it is that you are focused on and whatever it is that you set your intention to is where your radio is. And that is the song that will play. And it's always, all the time, every single second. And it's never not that. So we don't really live in the same world. We could all sit on the same, maybe not all at once, but we could be sitting next to someone on the same park bench in the same moment at the same location and have a completely different version of reality based upon the way we choose to perceive and what we're tuned to within ourselves. And it really doesn't matter our zip code or how tall we are or what car we drive. It matters what's happening between these two things in here and how those go together. And when we recognize, which is what we do in this classroom, in this portal, on this Zoom call, in our community, when we recognize that we have within us the lamp of the infinite light, and we become that level of abundance where we are emanating this divinity, emanating love, emanating broadcasting, compassion, wisdom, equanimity, life force, inspiration, creativity. We actually wind up being the fire starter that lights all the wicks around us. And that's really the most abundant state of being, is that you become the vibe. And people say to you, oh my God, you have the best energy. And you're like, thank you so much. And you leave every room better than you found it. So the radio inside of you becomes the radio that everybody else winds up hearing just because you come in the room. How awesome is that? Now, what it means is that all day long, all possibilities exist in the quantum field. And the one you're experiencing is the one you selected. So what does it mean? It means that, we're going to talk about it more now, there are a few things that are key components to manifestation. And the way we sort of work through these 3 steps collapses all possibility into the one possibility that you are experiencing. So let's go over those 3 things now, and let's see how we can weave that into the energy of Sagittarius type of 1, if you're ready to do that. Okay. So it comes down to, and what's really fun, and the way that I've studied throughout my journey has been combining spirituality with science and science with spirituality. And it's just all so awesome because the truth is that the greatest scientists of all time, like Newton and Aristotle and all these people, they all had a tremendous faith, and science was what they used to help them understand it, right? It wasn't there to disprove it. It was actually there to understand these cosmic designs. You know, Einstein had unbelievable letters that he published about God and about oneness consciousness, and pretty awesome. But anyway, I like looking at the science because it's really helpful to see that truth shows up in every way you do the equation. So neuroscience confirms it, okay? Identity shapes your behavior. Behavior shapes the probability, and the probability creates your reality. So what does that mean? And I wrote this down, so I'll send this to you. Thoughts organize the pathways, the neural pathways in your mind. Your actions change the environment. It's the observer effect. And therefore, your identity changes your timeline. Now, that's literally how it goes. So we can say, well, all of this is just like, woo woo. It's like, no, this is actually what's happening. It is literally why I showed my kids Bill Murray in Groundhog Day. It is the perfect example. It's such a good movie. And by the way, they were like, I don't want to watch it. 5 minutes in, they're glued. They're like, I love this movie. I'm like, I know it's a really good movie. It really illustrates this brilliantly, right? Nothing changes around him until what? Until he changes. Once he changes, everything changes around him, which is exactly how your life has gone. You just forget once in a while because your mind goes into an interesting place, right? Which is where we go to self-sabotage and to doubt and guilt and shame and all the things that it does. And it takes us off the radio completely. And now we can't even hear music. We just hear static. It's just like the days that feel like, oh, you don't have the clarity. Your head feels like a snow globe and the snow is just swishing around. You can't even see through that blizzard. Okay. So let's go into this a little bit deeper. So the first thing is, okay, that identity, okay, which is why when we do our morning checklist, why is it that I have you start with the identity? And the identity is, I am someone, I'm some of the one, I'm a masterpiece, I'm a piece of the master. Why? Because from that place, you can select the most cosmic possibility from the quantum field. The identity of anything other than you being a soul is a total fraud. It is, because we've all had different roles we played, right? In 7th grade, you had a different haircut. In 12th grade, you had different friends. In, junior year of college, you listened to different music and you were dating someone you're not even dating anymore, right? The point is the identity changes, right? I remember in 11th grade, I watched the movie French Kiss with Meg Ryan and I cut my hair that short. Okay, that was not a good idea for me because I actually have really wavy like hair like this, and it's not meant to be cut really short because it looks insane. It works for her, it didn't work for me. But the point is that girl who worked at Blockbuster Video like I did and cut her hair really short and dyed it bright red, I don't know who she is. Like if I saw her, she's fine. Like she was nice enough, but like I don't think I would choose to be friends with her. I don't know who that version of me was. We have played so many roles, right? It's like Russian nesting dolls. Who have you been? It's like Barbie. There's real estate Barbie, veterinarian Barbie, astronaut Barbie, but who are you really? The same soul you've been since the moment you took your first breath. The essence of you has not changed. My mom says the same thing. She's like, I've watched you go from, the mean girls on the playground to writing books, bestseller. She's like, you're the same empathetic, kind, it makes me cry. It's like the people who know you, right? Can change your hair. You can change the bands you listen to, but who you are is who you are. That's your soul. Okay. So in the morning, we want to plug back into who am I really? Not who am I performing? Not who am I pretending to be? Not who does the world tell me to be? Who am I? Because if I'm a masterpiece and I'm a piece of the master, then I only answer to that identity. And therefore, everything is always possible for me. God is not on a budget. God is my CFO. God has everything in escrow already. right? And whatever is my divine karma, dharma, assignment, it's mine anyway. I don't have to do anything. I just have to be me to receive it. Okay. So we start from identity. Now, many times without knowing to get our own attention in the morning, we're just going to replay the old identity. And to use the Groundhog Day example, that's what happens to Bill Murray until he finally shifts it. He's like, oh, here I am again, waking up, listening to that Sonny and Cher song, and I'm the curmudgeon guy, and I'm not that altruistic of a person, and my day is not that good. And he just relives it until he remembers, wait a minute, I'm actually not this guy. I'm actually something so much bigger than this. And like, I can change the timeline. I can change my whole reality because I can plug into who I really actually am, which is this guy who probably got his heart broken. And once upon a time, he was actually more vulnerable and he wasn't so sarcastic. And he goes back to that guy and everything changes around him, right? Gosh, I did not know I was going to be talking about this movie, but now you're like, I want to go rewatch it. You should rewatch it. It's a really good movie. So it starts with identity. So I wrote this down for you. So I'm reading the notes I wrote and I'll send them to you. So number one, there's only 3 steps: identity, right? And then we're going to have intention and then action. Okay. And then we'll do an exercise. But first of all, it's like, who are you deciding that you are every day? Are you a soul or are you this persona? Are you wearing a somebody suit? Right? Are you in the sense, are you operating from guilt and codependency and fear and shame and doubt and lack and what's not available to you and telling all these stories about what you can't have? I've always said you can have anything you want as long as you give up what? As long as you're willing to give up the belief that you can't have it. But most people are not willing to give that up. In fact, how many times have you been talking to somebody you love and you are arguing for them and they're arguing against themselves? You're like, oh my God, of course you can go to law school. Oh no, I can't. I'm too old. What's happening? You're litigating against yourself. Like you're talking to your friend. You're like, of course you could date someone new. No, I can't. You don't you know? Don't you know anything? Oh my God. And you're like, you are literally arguing against yourself and I'm arguing for you. What's wrong with this picture? It's identity. This person has lost sight of the fact that they are someone, some of the one. And this whole world is made of a quantum field of endless possibility. And the world is not net neutral or net negative. It's net positive. And it's always moving things in our favor because it wants wholeness. Why is it that when girls move in together, they get their menstrual cycle at the same time? Because the world is constantly moving towards connection. Of course, it wants you to meet your soulmate. Of course, it wants you to have your destiny fulfilled. That's how it was designed. That's why everything in the garden is constantly moving the roots so it gets the water. It knows what to do. But we get in the way because we go, of course I can't have that. What are you doing? It's put in escrow for you. Go have it. Remember who you are. So reality responds to you as the observer. It's the observer effect. So when you're observing reality from a place of some fake identity, you're going to collapse all possibility into this one possibility you've already lived that you obviously don't prefer, or else you wouldn't be on this call. You want the next one, the greater one, the more expansive one, which means you need to come to reality with the observer of the soul. The soul is infinite. The soul is endless. The soul has equanimity and wisdom, and it is, was, and will be. It's also going to far exceed this lifetime. Now that's abundant, right? So when you come from the identity of, I am a soul, now I'm observing reality from that standpoint, and I can choose to turn my thoughts to things. How about that one? How about the fact that you turn your thoughts to things? How about the fact that consciousness creates matter, energy creates form? Therefore, you are now observing reality, remembering that God spoke the world into being. Let there be light. Let there be that. Like, right? Like we literally, the words abracadabra, right, actually comes from Hebrew words, which means that what you speak is what creates, what becomes. Okay. DNA is literally a spinning, energetic little like loop. It's a code. It's a software code, and you're the 3D printout of that. So consciousness creates form, literally. Photosynthesis creates the trees. It's literally energy creates matter. Thoughts become things. So when you observe reality from the place of, I can literally create from consciousness alone. Now, what possibility do you want to select from the quantum field? Do you want to be healthy? Do you want to be wealthy? Do you want to be abundant? Do you want to be purposeful? Select it, choose it, go. That's it. That's all there was to it. Type a 1 if you get that. That's literally all there is to it. From the state of consciousness of that identity, you will create that 100%. Okay, so your identity is the signal that you send into the quantum field. Okay, and reality responds to you, to that. That's number one. which is why, again, I have you start your day with, I'm someone, some of the one. Now, if you start your day from a fearful identity, from an identity of like not feeling connected to what's real, what's timeless, what's lasting, you've now collapsed all possibilities into one outcome, which gives you some version of lack, and you'll just live it out. That's a choice. So when you move into a higher state of being, you collapse all possibilities into the higher states of possibilities, and that's the timeline that you're going to live out. Pretty cool. Number 2, intention, right? Now, from identity, you choose how to behave. From identity, you choose what to think and feel, which makes you do what you do, does it not? How you think and how you feel creates your behavior. So people, again, will say, this is so woo. I'm like, this is every second of every day of everyone's life. How you think and how you feel based on your identity is how you choose to behave, which creates your life, your choices. Okay. So your behavior, before we even get to actions, how you think and feel, it's the intention that you're now broadcasting into the field. So you have your identity, and from identity, you now think and feel a certain way. Do you not? Already, as I'm talking to you, as I'm kind of like preaching over you this gospel, so to speak, you're already having better thoughts and feelings, are you not? Because from this place of like, wait, a part of me is like all in on what she's saying. You're like, whoa, this feels right. This feels true. I kind of know this already. And now it's wide open. The lens, the aperture has widened. You can perceive such a greater expansive possibility for your moments, for your life. So the thoughts and feelings going on, the neural pathways are changing, which means you're imprinting a totally different vibration and a totally different energetic signature into the quantum field. Type of 1, if you get that. Okay. So your beliefs, your thoughts, your feelings, that's an emotional state that tells the universe what to deliver to you next. I'm going to say that again. Your thoughts and beliefs and feelings tell the universe what to deliver to you next. So it starts with identity. And from identity, we start to think and perceive a certain way, which creates a vibration. And that is an emotional code. It's an imprint. You're imprinting, 3D printing into the quantum field, and it's telling the quantum field, this is what I want you to deliver to me next. So wouldn't it behoove us to take 10 freaking minutes in the morning and set that identity right and set that emotional coding right so that we imprint and 3D print from the place of our soul, from the place of our deepest wisdom, so that we actually can ascend to a greater possibility. Whether you know it or not, you're always broadcasting data. So doubt is data. Avoidance is still data. So there are people who are like, oh, I'm not responsible. I didn't make any choices. Oh, no, that's a choice. You're committed to not making choices. So your whole life is a reflection of that, whatever it is, right? So that's the second thing. It starts with identity. It moves into the information you send, which has to do with your thoughts and feelings, okay? And then the third thing is, from the place of thinking and feeling, you act. That's your behavior. Reality, it doesn't move because you want something. It moves because you keep sending an aligned signal through repeated action. And those tiny choices, which are a result of how you think and feel and who you believe you are, the probability in the field changes. So our job is to remember that those actions every day, all day long, when you're now observing yourself and other people acting out their life, making choices, are they even making the choices they intended to make? Probably not, because they're making the choices from an old identity of lack and self-doubt and what's not possible and fear and some identity that was programmed into them from probably like their uncle or their parents or their grand. They don't even believe it, but they're living it over and over and over and over and over again. So eventually we can change that by plugging into, and this is why I say in my book, it's like, imagine if you had a waffle iron on your desk and you didn't plug it in and you thought it was a paperweight. That's a really awkward, weird paperweight. And it's not meant to sit on your desk. It's meant to be plugged in and make you breakfast. We are meant to be plugged into the infinite, plugged into God, plugged into the divine, plugged into our soul. And when we are, we become a wizard. We start to access what's actually in escrow. Then we start to think and feel quite awesome, actually, because all these possibilities are happening. And from that place, we feel this feeling of certainty and this feeling of life force. And we know that we're having a spiritual experience while having a human experience. And we're just playing with consciousness at that point. And now our behavior is going to be coming from the highest possibility, the greatest choices. We're not going to come from guilt, shame, doubt, fear, lack. We're not playing there. So we're hanging out in the energy of a much more quantum experience.